I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane, broadcasting from the Marcus Garvey House here in North Minneapolis. And you know, it's all about the neighborhood. This is a conversation about how we build our community, our neighborhood, house by house, family by family. We're focusing on business creation, business development, economic development, and culture. It's a wonderful conversation, a robust conversation. One of the guides for this conversation is my brother, who takes us on a musical journey, Wayne McFarlane and jazz. Check him out.
In my room, I feel good when I'm thinking about my neighborhood.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today's program is about the controversy surrounding the Minnesota same-sex marriage amendment. It's an issue that touches all of us in the state for all kinds of reasons. We want to talk about that today. Pleased to have with me Sarah Walker. She's a board member of Minnesotans United for All Families, one of the organizations that's championing the effort to defeat that amendment. Sarah, thank you for being here, first of all. And let me ask you to put this in context. What are the issues at play, and what are the points of view of the Minnesotans United for All Families?
Yes, well, thank you. And as always, Al, it's wonderful to be on your show. I am very happy to be a board member of Minnesota United for All Families, and they are the organization that is leading the effort to oppose the marriage amendment. And I think really their position is very simple. The reality is that anyone should be able to be free to marry who they want. And fundamentally, the question is about, are we going to write discrimination into our Constitution? Our government should be about expanding opportunities and not limiting opportunities. And as you know, in work I've done with you in the past, I mean, I've spent my entire life working on human rights and civil rights issues. I spend my time working on issues with prisoners and criminal justice system. And to me, this is fundamentally an issue about justice and how we want our state to act and what kind of state we want to live in. And I don't think any of us want to live in a state where we're limiting people's potential and opportunities. At the end of the day, whoever you love, people should be able to marry them. I mean, so the issue is really simple and shouldn't be framed any other way than a limiting of individual opportunity.
Mike Griffin is youth organizer for Minnesotans United for All Families. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting us here.
And continue from where Sarah Walker left out. You personally,
Sure.
What are the issues for you?
So personally, so I'm doing youth organizing for the campaign. And what brought me to the campaign was I think that young people actually think differently about this issue than, let's say, my parents or my grandparents. I think that one thing that I've heard from them is that it's a tragedy that we are voting on people to have the freedom to get married in Minnesota. That's one. But two, that they feel so fired up and that they're ready to get involved because that we're not only fighting for our generation to be able to have this conversation and to continue to talk about it, but we're fighting for the next generation to be able to have this conversation. So what makes this amendment so appalling is that this will forever and permanently end the conversation, not only for the generation that I think that are about to take over and that are coming up, but also for the next generation that are fighting. So that's one. But two, I'm also a person of faith. I grew up in the Christian church. I'm the son of a pastor. And one thing that I think that this bill does is that it threatens my freedom of religion. It threatens my church, my dad, where I grew up, from being able to marry who they want to marry. I think that it's very chilling for the government to come in and tell a church who they can and cannot marry, which is why I'm going to fight tirelessly for the next 4 months to make sure that we absolutely defeat the amendment.
Let me bring in Reverend Jerry McAfee, who's pastor of New Salem Missionary Baptist Church in North Minneapolis. He's also president of the Minnesota State Baptist Convention, active locally, nationally in the question of organizing community, of liberation of our community. Jerry McAfee, Reverend McAfee, what is your take? What's your organizational position on the question of the Minnesota same-sex marriage amendment?
Thank you, Al, for asking me that, because many people have put words in my mouth, so let me give you truth. New Salem, Northern Minnesota State Baptist Convention has taken a position on the amendment, either yay or nay. I have stated very clearly and concisely where I'm at as it pertains to gay marriage, but we have not said a word in reference to where we're at. And that was in a response to what our president had stated. When Senator Karen Clark and I talked, and Jeff Hayden, about this back in January, my exact words to them was, this is not our agenda. We don't have a dog in this hunt, because this is not the most important thing that's facing African Americans right now. In this city in which we live, there's over 40-some% unemployment. I don't need to tell any of you at the level of inequalities of what we deal with as African Americans, period. There's not, out of 22 years of pastoring, 30-some years of preaching, no couple of the same sex have come and asked me to marry them yet. Not a one. Now, what has been interesting, since I stated my position on gay marriage, which I've stated for 30-some years since I've been preaching, and mind you, as it pertains to the homophobia of the black church, that's a myth. One, it's a downright lie. You can't go to no black churches that don't have any gay people actively involved. Nowhere. And most of the ones that I know, I can tell you from New Salem what I tell the gay and lesbian people that come there. A, I will never isolate you and just point out what, from our perspective, is a biblical sin without calling the roll on adultery, fornication, lying, cheating, backbiting, the whole nine. I'm Christian born, Christian bred. When I die, I'll be a Christian dead, and I'm not going to back up from it. There is a biblical mandate that we have, but the mandate that transcends even what we think right or wrong about sex, the first commandment is to love. I need to win people by my deeds. So it was amazing to me that when I made my comments, I discovered I was homophobic. I wasn't homophobic when we was taking care of AIDS patients before it got popular. I wasn't homophobic when I was counseling lesbians and gay men. I wasn't homophobic when I was giving them food and feeding them. But now you tell me I'm bigot and I'm homophobic because I don't want that position, but now you have no respect for my position. If you find one gay man, one gay lady that ever stepped through the doors of New Salem and somebody mistreated them, and especially if I find out about it, trust me, you won't find it. And so what my personal feeling is, A, I was not pleased with the president's announcement, and this is why.
President Barack
Barack Obama. It was already stated that if he lose 10% of the African-American vote, he could lose the election. So why would you make this statement now and put that in jeopardy? B, he did not talk to any African-American clergy leadership till afterwards. Any constituency that you respect, before you say something adversely that is going to affect that relationship, you call them to a meeting first and see how you can find common ground. That was not given to us. C, the Democratic Party in this state, see, my issues is not so much with marriage amendment, but with how the Democratic Party is treating African Americans, period. They disrespect us at levels that it just blows my mind. You tell me, when I sat there with Ken Martin, I asked them, show me the dollars that you spent on voter ID and show me the dollars you spent on the marriage amendment. Because here's what we know. While if you get enough money on marriage amendment and not enough on voter ID, it's going to be a wash. It's going to be a wash. And so what the Democrats do to us, they play us like we're chumps. And so you want to come into our churches and do all these different kind of things. I'm saying, hell no. You can't come into New Salem no more. And any other church that I got influence with, we're organizing to tell the Democratic Party, no. You will have a shared agenda. If your agenda in this party is solely a gay, homosexual agenda, and it is not shared in equal power with the African-American community, I say, as the pastor of New Salem and the president of the State Baptist Convention, ain't gonna happen.
What do you mean by that, shared agenda? What do you
right mean? Now, out of the state DFL meeting, the two things that they said they were gonna work on, to my understanding, and y'all here, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, is the marriage amendment and voter ID. Well, wait a minute. What about unemployment? What about one of the biggest atrocities and slave things that's in this community right now? We got the poorest people in the community, but yet we pay more fines in trafficking than anybody around here. What about that? And when you tell me a Democratic Party that my father was in, my grandfather was in, that I've been in all of these years, that's the lead things you got to talk to me about? There's gay black men ain't working. So this ain't about a sex thing with me. It's about you disrespecting our community at the level that you do, and then you insult us. And then when we give you our opinion, anybody who know me, especially if you go to a black Baptist church, you know what their theology is 9 times out of 10. But how many of you done heard a black preacher get up and say, oh, you can't come in here, you gay? Y'all know that. Why was not I homophobic when I had a gay man working for me? I ain't tripping about that, man. We got some bigger things. And what the Democrats have done to us is a travesty of justice, and we need to organize not just in this state, but all over this country for what they've done to us. And I believe when we get to that, I don't care who you go to bed with. You think I'm going to lose some sleep about that? I got enough problems of my own. And if we don't look at this thing more global, I'll say this and I'll hush. I talked to Bishop Richard Howell, who is the bishop of Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, and I think about 4 states. Bishop Washington, who's over Kojic. And we're having a forum on the 24th of July at 6 o'clock to deal with the marriage amendment and the same-sex marriage. Because why make me, who have a history of working for all people without thinking about their sexuality, why now do I become a demagogue? You mean to tell me we have yet to get to, and y'all, I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about Democrats. I just got a letter from a Hopewell Music Academy who was doing music at New Salem free of charge for people in the community. Well, when I made my position known on same-sex marriage, they said, well, since they are an accepting group, they needed to move from New Salem, and if members from New Salem can come there. So let me get this straight. I can accept any and everybody who come through my doors, but you can't accept my opinion.
Sarah, what about it?
Well, I think there's a lot of things I have to say, and I don't disagree with Reverend McAfee on any level about some of the failures of the DFL in Minnesota and nationally, and I think there will be a reckoning day where issues that are important to the communities of color, and namely unemployment, will have to be grappled with, or there will be a realignment around parties and who votes for who, and I think that's just obvious. This is a constituent game. That being said, though, again, I'm just going to say that I work on, the last thing I needed really was to join another board in my life. I've been leading the Second Chance Coalition, which fundamental focus is getting employment opportunities for people with criminal record and addressing racial disparities in the justice system. But I fundamentally felt I had no choice except to join the board because what I've seen, both in the criminal justice system and in the social service system, is that black families and families in general are judged. And we impose on families our judgment. And nowhere more than in my own family, in my faux family, do I just don't want to see families being judged. And I feel like what this amendment does is another judgment on families. But I also think it's really important to separate the group, Minnesota United, from the DFL. The reality is the DFL has one agenda, but Minnesota United is an extremely diverse coalition of Republicans, Democrats, young people, business professionals, and it is being funded, so it's not related to the DFL funding. How the DFL spends their money is one issue, but the Minnesota United is raising money and working on this campaign by itself.
Well, the question is and I won't ask you this, or I should ask you this, how is Minnesota United spending its money? Because that's the question being raised, is how are the resources being used? And are resources you're acquiring, being leveraged to generate benefit in the black community? And can those resources also influence DFL spending as well?
Well, I guess one thing I'll say is, one thing I've seen in the difference, I'm very involved in the DFL as well, but one thing I'll say Minnesota United's done really well is from its very first organizing thing, immediately worked on recruiting a diverse group, including me, other people of color, to join the board, but they've also immediately set aside resources to have community color organizers in every community. And, you know, we have community color organizers not just even in the Twin Cities, but in St. Cloud, in Rochester. And so really working on carrying that conversation. And I could say is I'm on lots of boards where I feel like I am tokenized, or I'm asked to be on the board for just being a person of color. And then if there's an opportunity, they want me to go speak on it. But I can tell you every suggestion I've given about where you should do outreach or where you might not want to do, or they've actually taken to heart and listened, which I can say is sitting on boards that does not always happen. And I think they're using their resources carefully and wisely.
Al,
Yes, Reverend McAfee.
And again, Sarah has done excellent work, and I followed it, see it, and thank God for your work. Here is, to me, the failure of Minnesota United. Sometimes when you all get together, y'all think y'all know our community, and you'll get African Americans who don't know us at all, and you all are just buying to what they say. Now, those of you know me, you know I'm a straight shooter. Nimco is one of y'all, I think that's her name, is one of y'all lead people who y'all had called me.
Nimco Ahmed.
Okay.
Yeah, Somali girl.
Yeah, Nimco don't know our community. To me, if I was doing something, I'd have said, Sarah, here's who you might want to use for this effect. It's just like President Obama now. They throw this stuff out there, and then for the person in the rural area, they have no theological covering to show them why you would make a distinction in voting against Romney for me. Because there's the plethora of scriptures that you could use. And that's my point. That's the frustration. You all don't know us like you think you do. You don't have a clue. And then when we try to talk to you, you went and told, and not you, my brother's in St. Cloud. He comes and said, Mac, this fella just came and said they were told that Minnesota United could buy your voice. And I'm like, huh? Because they did not fully comprehend what I'm saying, because they think they know. Sometimes if you slow your roll, have a conversation with someone and not listen to what you think I said, listen to what I said, you might have an ally. But what you wind up doing, you start pushing people into a corner, and I'm like most of the folk on this panel. Hell, I'll fight too now. I'm not a chump. I'm not going to back up. And to me, that's what Minnesota United has done. As well as, and not just Minnesota United, the get out to vote people too. All y'all did that. Y'all disrespecting
and the DFL.
us.
All of them. Hold up. Let's come back. Okay. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We're going to come back. But when we come back, I want to bring in two great voices, Michael Cole Smith and Jamil Smith Cole, entrepreneurs, business leaders, young elders in our community, and they are in a same-sex marriage. And you were talking, Reverend McAfee, about sometimes organizations don't know us. And so I'm going to turn to my friends, Michael and Jamil, Michael Cole Smith and Jamil Smith Cole, and talk about the inside of the inside, how this discussion affects you as individuals, as a family, and your perception of our community. And the big question is, and I think Reverend McAfee alluded to this, even the white gay community doesn't connect and doesn't engage and doesn't represent the issues and the leadership and the strengths of the black same-sex marriage community. So we'll come back and talk about that in just a minute. Stay tuned.
The rising sun will shines from above. Oh, I love the way you make me dance. I love the way that you feel. I know you. I love the way you make me dance. I love to see you in the sun on the beach. I can't believe the things we had. I've been waiting for my lover to come. Hi, 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 hi,
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Our topic today is the Minnesota Same-Sex Marriage Amendment. I want to bring in the voice of two colleagues. I call them young elders in the community, Michael Cole-Smith and Jamil Smith-Cole. They are the owners of Talk of the Town, a celebrated fashion and hair business in South Minneapolis, but they have created sort of a legendary presence, in part through your very public wedding a couple of years ago. As you hear this conversation, Michael, what are you thinking, and what do you want our community to start thinking about and to know differently?
Well, to start off, first, I want to say to the young man, I feel what you're trying to accomplish with our youth because of the simple fact that we spoke before about how it is to be young, gay, and a lot of things you just put aside because they're not attainable, because you realize you're gay, like one day being married, one day having children, things of that nature. But the ability to be able to know that marriage is doable is part of my heritage, it's part of something that I will be able to take part in, changes your outlook on the things that you do with your life leading up to being an adult and being grown and being ready for that to happen. A lot of it is pushed aside because it's not a dream. It's not a dream deferred. It's a dream denied. But with this amendment being shut down and for us to be allowed to marry and live equally as our heterosexual counterparts will allow us to just live a more fruitful younger life, adult life, and go in further into, raising children and having the ceremonies and living our lives outwardly, as a married couple and sharing the same rights. I listened to Reverend McAfee. I know Reverend McAfee. And a lot of what he said was true. He's fair. He's not homophobic. He's been one of the few pastors in this city that has embraced me personally as a gay male. He's acknowledged that I'm a gay male. And he's opened his doors, his arms, his church to me to worship and to be a part of and enjoy myself while I am there. So for someone to say he's homophobic, I don't get that. I didn't hear that. You know, I missed that memo. But I get his passion about Obama. I get it. But on the flip side of that, I just have to say, I'm sorry. It's our turn. When Obama spoke out, my heart opened up and I just was like, I was so elated because now we have, it wasn't the fact that Obama is an African American, it's the fact that he is the highest leader in the United States, and he spoke up for something that in our hearts as gay people, we have to deny. And he finally spoke to me personally. It was almost like he was like, Michael, I back you now. And so for that, I get it. It's other things that the legislatures and, you know, everybody wants to go in before this marriage amendment. I get that, you know, but I'm sorry, it's our turn. And we're stepping up to the plate and we're going head on for it to actually happen. It's our turn, you know? But the thing about it is, it's so many people who are out here living their lives secretly, ashamed, and to be able to be a full individual will allow you to be a better contributor in the world, in all things, in the church. You'll be able to freely be yourself and freely really allow God into your life without, you know, conditions and without walls and barriers. You'll be able to freely enjoy the word, allow God to take you on your progress and, you know, and as a couple, bless your union and take you where he wants you to go. That's within the church. In the community, we'll be able to be outwardly role models and allow the young gay people to see that there are some positive people in the community that you can aspire to be like.
That's important, isn't it? Because there's this image of black gay that is very
Stereotypical.
Talk about that.
Well, I mean, in the media, and okay, now the going gay is so flamboyant and feminine, and it's so contrary to what real gay life is all about. But for ratings, that's what they choose to portray or put out in front of, you know, the world and show as what a gay male is, and it's not. It's such a misrepresentation. That's only one facet of a gay male in America or in the world. We have so many facets, and the other parts are not being shown. And because of that, a lot of those entities, you know, marriage is not, you know, it's not being brought to the media as well as it would be if you was to see someone like Jamil and myself, who we have a home, we have a business, we're co-parenting a child. You know, we pay our taxes, you know, we try to mentor as often as we can, you know, and so you don't see this part. You don't see two masculine guys doing this and doing it well. What you see is the ultra feminine, you know, guys, and that's what's being portrayed. And a lot of that is distasteful to the public. It's distasteful to a lot of gays, you know? So, you know, there's no balance to whereas we can all band together and pull this thing off. Trying to get this amendment shut down so we will be allowed to be legally married has been such a white issue for so long. The African American community has been just put aside. It's like our vote don't count. It does. It does, and as soon as the white community, white gay community, start acknowledging us as part of the community, then at that point, you will get our vote. It will be passed. At that point, this marriage amendment, same-sex marriage amendment, will be shut down, and we will be allowed to marry. But they keep ignoring our vote.
And
They
that's kind of
ignore
what
us
Reverend
as
McAfee
people.
was saying.
True.
Is that when it comes down to the power and the money, whether it's general black issues or same-sex marriage issues, black people are pushed to the side and not respected and not engaged. And at some point in time, within the black gay community and with the black community in general, we've got to negotiate and demand a share of the power, meaning a share of the resources.
Exactly.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does.
You all were bold in announcing and presenting your marriage. Let me bring Jamil in. Why did you guys decide to be very public? Your wedding was global news. How so, and why did you decide to be very public as you have been?
Well, it wasn't so much as a decision as us just being pushed out into the forefront. Like we were discussing earlier, our wedding photos were taken, put into an email, which basically circled the globe, and then it made it publicized. It was publicized within Minnesota between our friends and our family and people that really celebrated us. And it was the person that celebrated us that put the email out to celebrate us more with someone that she knew. And it was taken from there and turned into a lot of good press, and it was a lot of bad press. It was a lot of ignorant and,
But it
just
got America to talk.
the comments were just too much.
Conversation about African Americans marrying,
But
gay African Americans actually marrying. That was an option.
But it's still, what we did was still not enough. It was a big push, but it's not enough. And a lot of things, like he said, he's doing a lot of youth outreach. I think if we do more youth outreach within the black community, which is probably that 10% of people that won't vote, then the amendment will be shut down. It will not pass. It's the younger kids that don't believe that they can be married and don't, they won't pay their taxes, and they're doing everything to avoid being an adult. I guess a good representation of a black gay male or whatever they are. These are the people that we need to get in contact with. These are the people that needs to be voted. These are the people who need to be, interacted with. And it's a shame that that's who is being put and portrayed as the stigma of what gay people are, be it men or women.
See how what had happened with us, we couldn't wait. If we wait for this, for it to be legalized, when can we have a ceremony? When will we be able to? So we took the bull by the horns and we just said, we're just going to do it. Okay, it's not legal. We have a civil union. We have a piece of paper that says we have a domestic partnership. But we wanted a ceremony. We wanted,
I always felt, why did I need the government to tell me who I can and cannot love? And we've discussed this before. I don't need a piece of paper to say that I'm married to this man. But if they're going to offer me the piece of paper, I'm going to take it. Right. I feel like I should receive everything that anybody else is.
Yeah, exactly. Any other citizen has in the marriage relationship.
But I don't. It's not a must for me.
Right.
I don't need that.
Right.
But if I can have it, I want it.
Yes. Okay. If it's due us, and we want it. But until then, we're conducting ourselves as a married couple. We live as a married couple. We're raised, like I said, we're co-parenting, like any other couples do when you have children that's involved in separate households. And we're doing a very, very good job at it. Our business is thriving, and, what more can we ask? I just don't want to continue walking through life with knowing that it's not legal. Just give us that.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're watching Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll continue this program in just a minute. My guest, Michael Cole Smith and Jamil Smith Cole, talking about their civil union, their marriage, and my guest talking about the Minnesota Same-Sex Marriage Amendment. We'll talk more about that in a minute and take audience questions as well. Stay tuned.
Shine, sun, shine that I may live long enough to give the love I want to give. Shine, sun, shine that I may grow. Let my warm moonbeams flow. Shine, sun, shine that I may live long enough to give the love I want to give. Shine, sun, shine that I may live long enough to give the love I need to give. Even those words, it says, this, you don't want to leave this world, it says, for all I know, this world may end tomorrow. I don't want to leave this world laden with sorrow. So while I've got just one more day, I'll take this opportunity to say that time. Ooh. Shine, sun, shine that I may live long enough to give the love I need to give. Shine, 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 shine. Shine your light on me long enough to give the love I want to say. Let's go down to New Orleans, my friend, we'll have some fun. Don't mean to hurt no one. We'll go down and have some etouffee crawfish. Going down to Bourbon Street, have some fun. And there ain't nothing I can do. There ain't nothing I can say. Come into LA. Now I'm waiting by the fire, thinking about my love. She's the girl that keeps me on fire, keeps my soul burning all night long, keeps my soul burning all night long. There ain't nothing, baby, why you take so long. I can't wait another minute, dead long. Now I'm sitting by the fire, quenching my desire, waiting for my baby to come.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today's program about the controversial Minnesota same-sex marriage amendment, one that is seeking to deny the opportunity for same-sex couples to marry. So we're talking about that, and I have to disclose that the position of the newspaper, Inside News, and Al McFarlane's position is opposed to the same-sex marriage amendment. So I say that for the record. We believe in human decency, human dignity, and that every human being and every relationship is sacred. And we support the right for every individual to engage in what he or she feels is a sacred relationship with another human being. So that's where we stand. But let me go back to you, Sarah Walker, and to you, Mike Griffin, youth organizer for Minnesotans for United for All Families, and Sarah Walker, board member of Minnesotans United for All Families. You might want to respond to some of the challenging questions presented by Reverend McAfee. He had to leave, but he laid it on the table. And so if you would, just what did you think about, and how do you want to keep the air clear for the prime mission at hand?
Yeah, well, I think, the main thing Reverend McAfee brought up was the question of sort of delivering the message and who's the messenger, and how do mainstream movements relate to communities of color. And first, I would say that this is a challenge in every political campaign, not just this one. And I guess, to me, though, what sticks out when he's saying, and after I listened to your story, and it's so inspiring, is that what's really come out of this is a really healthy conversation. And we are going to win this campaign by having these difficult conversations. I also think that, we talk about winning the larger election and all of the ways this is related to other political dynamics going on. But if we want to send a message as the African American community that our vote counts and that we can actually make a difference, well, here's really one good way to win this. The African American vote is going to be critical in defeating this amendment. And this is our time to say to, whether it's the DFL party or any other party, that, listen, if you want our support, you need to come to us, and here's our opportunity to have this conversation. If we don't take that opportunity, I think that sends the opposite message of, you can continue to ignore us, and we won't get anything. And the other thing is we have multiple fronts to battle within the African American community, from criminal justice to unemployment to education reform. And I personally can't take a position that we can ignore one of them. And this is another issue of justice that we just can't allow to be written into our Constitution. This is about the freedom of people. And, I, as a kid, grew up with my two idols were Bayard Rustin and James Baldwin. And it does not go unnoticed to me that those are two gay African-American men who I grew up idolizing, with literally photos on my wall. And I look back and think, I would want them to be able to the right to get married.
If I could just jump in, just speaking as a youth organizer for the campaign.
Mike Griffin.
Yep. I think that Michael and Jamir's story, thank you so much for sharing that, very, very powerful. I think that can get literally hundreds of young people in the north side of Minneapolis involved and engaged on this campaign. One thing that actually prouds me about Minnesota United is that we're not just a segment that's focused on this issue, but a large variety of people who worked on campaigns before. So I started off 4 years ago. I was a field organizer for then candidate Obama, now President Obama. And as the president did in 2008, turning out a fleet of new voters to get inspired and engaged and empowered. In Minnesota, I'm one of them. I think that this issue will also do that on the north side. So I think that as we continue to go out all summer, talking to young voters and into the fall, that this issue is going to turn out young voters who would not have turned out if it wasn't for this issue. So on November 7th, when we're looking back at what did Minnesota United do in the state of Minnesota, what did we do on the north side? And we're coming out and we're saying that we have this story that we just heard there, and we have hundreds of other stories that are just like that we'll be able to tell into the entire state of Minnesota. I think that strengthens our community, that strengthens my community, that strengthens the black community, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I joined Minnesota United.
But Sarah, you talked about it's not uncommon for organizations and institutions to do the token thing, and that is try to reach out to one or two. You also mentioned that this organization is not like that, that it has this real commitment to diversity at the top and in the staff and in the organization. And so how do you think, and should this organization become a model for what should be? what are you modeling that ought to be replicated by the DFL and other institutions so that equity, fairness, and justice do in fact exist and are visible and real throughout the organization and throughout the mission?
Well, I think, I'll give some examples. One thing that I feel is common in a board meeting is I feel like I have to be the voice who has to say, well, can we please also remember people of color, or did we include this? And I can say that someone has said this in every meeting prior to me even having to get to a point of saying that. It doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work to do, but I also think, they have consciously gone to the communities of color, asked them who they think are good voices, and have had constant conversations and been open and malleable to the change.
I said before the program that my experience and my thought is that even in the white gay community, there is the same degree of chauvinism and of paternalism, and that tends to denigrate and devalue the humanity of black people that there is abroad in white culture. Is that wrong? Is that too big a statement to make?
I wouldn't feel comfortable actually commenting. I mean, I will say this. I mean, there's institutional racism everywhere, and I think that carries into any majority community within a minority community as well. And we know, my background's in political research, and I think we know that within any minority group, the least advantaged minority group still remains the least advantaged. So that disparity carries on regardless, but it doesn't mean that there aren't efforts being made to compensate for that and to work around it. I think that's going to be an issue that is going to be worked on long past this campaign. But the issue to remember is, are we because of the issues that it may or may not exist, are we going to allow something to be discriminatorily written into our Constitution and prevent the conversations for the future?
See, what you have to understand is our white counterparts, gay counterparts, they get it. They get it. And they're out there in the forefront, and they're like going full force for this head on. And I get that. But they're trying to do it by themselves because they stigmatize the African-American gay community as bad. All the things that happened at the 90s. And a lot of times it's race-related. And a lot of times it is the African-Americans that are down there acting out, misbehaving, but they don't have good black role models, people who they can actually pluck them out and say, no, this is not how we do it. They need to be shown the way. When you have our white counterparts coming up to us asking us, vote no, we're looking at them like, who are you? No, we're not even gonna touch that vote. We're gonna skip that box, because they're like rebelling. Once you put a black face to the cause, they will not latch on to it. And you have in all of our local gay publications and things of that nature, they avoid the African American community as a whole.
So once you put a black face to this cause, white gay people will shun it.
This is the thing about the African American community. 9 times out of 10, when a black mother goes to buy her child a doll, she's gonna hunt that store down for a black doll. Mm-hmm. She wants her child to see something that she can, in that doll, that she can see in herself, Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with us. We need to identify with what you're trying to get us to latch, to be a part of. And especially if it's all white, we're going to come up against it. That's just how the African American community is, based on slavery, based on, just our whole plight that we have gone through over the years. It's just how we are inbred, to react. But once you see, that's why Obama, he can come out and say that he's for, whatever. We as a black community, we're going to follow that.
Let's take a question. Al Flowers is here. Al.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Again, I asked a question on the first panel, and I said this about Minnesota United because I'm out there on the ground. I'm trying to, I don't care who marry who. That ain't my, I don't care. I think everybody should get the fair shot at equality and justice because African Americans are the one that fought the civil rights struggle to make sure everybody is treated fairly. Now I think Minnesota United, and the question was asked, Sarah, you're a board member. I don't know if it's some Minnesota United people in the audience, but I could tell the way they looking that they kind of frowned up when Reverend McAfee was talking. It's all on the message. So I'm asking you, one of the things that some of your people said is don't tell, if we don't vote, African Americans, it's good for the cause. Don't educate us, let us just don't vote, and that's a no vote for the marriage amendment. I'm not one that thinks we should not be educated on what we're talking about here, like what Al is trying to do here.
Have you heard that, or you know that for sure?
No, I was in the meeting when this was said to me about us not voting. I was in the meeting, and I stepped back.
And that's atrocious.
Yeah, I stepped back in a meeting with with Minnesota United people, said this is one of the philosophies that you were coming with and take action. I talked to Dan McGrath when he was leaving. He said he knows the same thing. He heard the same thing. So, and my question is, we talking about voter ID, us not being able to vote. A question was earlier, what is Minnesota United? Is strictly, they raised over $3-4 million. It's strictly for the marriage amendment, but it was going out saying this is about voter ID and the marriage amendment. So I would like to know which part is, have you raised on voter ID? What is the marriage amendment? In the marriage amendment, this is what some of the representatives that support the marriage amendment said, this is strictly for the marriage amendment. And when you talk about people in St. Cloud and all these other places with this diversity, this minority diversity that you pushing out, that came through Outfront, Minnesota, that's had not been particularly nice to African-American gays. Outfront, Minnesota, when African Americans go there, they have a problem at Outfront, Minnesota. So
let me phrase what I heard you just say.
Yes.
That struck me the most. I heard you just say that you thought, or someone from Minnesota United says it's okay for blacks to not vote.
Right.
Because if they don't vote, that counts as a no vote in the question of the marriage amendment.
Yes.
That's crazy.
That's absolutely what was said.
Well, Al, it's always nice to get a provocative question from you. I can count on that.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing is, of course, I was not in that meeting. I would be really, really shocked. I think what is true is that we know there might be some people who in their hearts just don't know. They are uncomfortable with the fact that we have these amendments on the ballot at all, and they just don't know what to do. So it is true that I could easily see someone saying, if you just don't have a position on this, just don't vote on this amendment. Because if you don't vote on the amendment, if you don't check the no box or either box, it's automatically a vote no. So we know that as a strategy is successful. Minnesota United is a totally separate campaign from the campaign for voter ID. There are, of course, partners within the, like I'm on the board, I work on the voter ID, so there are clearly synthesis. The voter ID campaign, which is separate, is running a vote no campaign, which is separate again from Minnesota United because they're vested in voting both down. Minnesota United is so diverse of a coalition. I mean, as you know, like Representative Kriesel is, Republican representative who is on the board of Minnesota United. For us to keep a broad, diverse coalition and to really make this a grassroots effort with an expanded voice, we are staying focused on this one issue.
Are you aware that your organizers are saying that it's that you can mix the voter ID and that's almost tricking people saying that they're on that issue?
Al, we're down to 1 minute. Let me get one more question in from Mr. Buckner real quickly, and then...
It's more of a question. I mean, it's actually more of a statement. And when we really think about this has happened in 33 other states, first and foremost. And if we don't have all hands on deck passing or whatever you want to do, people of color make up over 25% of a positive vote. So to try to go with that type of an approach is almost foolhardy. If we don't do the proper education to get people out affirmatively and sharing, because we have less than 100 days, and let's just say about 110 days, and let's just say that message isn't getting out there. So the biggest challenge to Minnesota United and to other entities is how do you really start to pass that on? Working with individuals like Reverend McAfee and working with Al and others. 1.5 million votes is going to win this whole thing. We make up about somewhere about 300 50,000 to 400,000 individuals. If we don't get it together within our communities, we lose, period. And that confirms, because again, we're trying to get over the hump as it relates to passing this thing, because there's already laws in the books. But if we think about it, if we lose voter ID, and if we lose this, basically it's going to cement where Minnesota's going. And I think we all agree that that's where we shouldn't be going.
Brett Buckner, thank you so much. Al Flowers, thank you for your leadership and the questions that you've raised, important questions. I want to thank my panel, thank my guests. This has been a great conversation. I think it's a beginning, but I think it's what we need to do is keep talking, keep sharing, keep arguing, and keep advocating, and keep being ourselves, right? Keep doing what we do. So I want to thank Mike Griffin, youth organizer for Minnesotans United for All Families. I want to thank Sarah Walker, board member for Minnesotans United for All Families. Special thanks to Michael Cole-Smith and Jamil Smith-Cole for their leadership, their service, and their just being out there standing for what you believe. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all. Thank you, our listeners and our viewers, for watching Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We got to say good night. We want to thank Al McFarlane for bringing us all those great words and all our lovely guests, all the guests in the house. Everything's good, you know. So I want y'all to tune in every Tuesday morning, right around 9 o'clock. Cause we're gonna play a song. All the guests will be home. We'll be feeling like talking. Have a robust conversation. All our guests in the house. 2 million people out there. I know you're listening on the internet. KFA High. Come on, listen to the show. Come on, Al McFarlane gonna let you know. Cause this thing he said, the message is clear. Everybody